the past, present, and future of black athletes in ice hockey. That's the subject of an award-winning documentary being shown at the Roxbury International Film Festival, which kicks off today. It's called Soul on Ice. Here's a clip.
The game is exciting, but in the hood, growing up, there's no ice rinks. You don't really get to play.
If kids in grade school had ice hockey as part of their gym, you don't think we'd have some phenoms by the time they get to high school? You kidding me?
It's not really part of our culture like basketball and football are, but it's exciting from what I've seen.
I've been hearing things like this my whole life about the game I fell in love with at a young age. As a Canadian, it's what we're known for. But I'm Canadian, so why did I feel like it wasn't for me? Was it because I didn't see me? Or was it because I didn't hear about me? Today, it's a lot different. It almost seems like they came out of nowhere. But you know there's always the first. Those who broke down the barriers, those who persevered through adversity, and those who played the game because it's in their soul.
Joining me now is the director of Soul on Ice, Kwame Mason. Kwame, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So I got to confess to you, I'm only about halfway through the film, but it's fascinating, and I want to ask you about how it ends, but I'm going to go ahead and watch it tonight instead.
No spoilers.
Why did you make this film?
You know, I grew up in Toronto and in Canada. It's a hockey world out there. I always tell people, you know, when you're born in Canada, the first thing they do is give you a stick. And I loved the game, and I felt a disconnect for a lot of years growing up, not seeing a lot of black athletes in the game of hockey. And then when, you know, I got older, I was a radio announcer for 13 years, and I wanted to transition, and I always wanted to do film, and I wanted to do something that I was very passionate about, which was hockey. And at that time, I also thought, again, it's like there's still not a lot of black athletes out there. But in doing some research, I found a long-standing history. And so I thought, well, if this is stuff that I don't know, how many people don't know?
I got to ask you about that history, because you go back and forth between present day, or maybe the future of hockey, and people like this this incredibly appealing protagonist, Jalen Lindo, who's a minor league hockey player hoping to get drafted in the NHL. But you bounce back and forth between him and other young people, and this deep history, which in some cases is totally forgotten. So along those lines, what was the Maritime Colored Hockey League? Okay,
so back in the 1800s, approximately 1895 to about 1930, the blacks that settled into Nova Scotia, these are a generation passed from those who came from the Underground Railroad that settled into Nova Scotia. They wanted to participate in what everybody was doing in the community, which was hockey. But because there was still that racial divide there, they figured, well, okay, if we can't play with the white players, well, let's start up our own league. So that's exactly what they did. So the different regions, they started up their own teams. They went to the churches, they got the young men together, and they started up this hockey league that became actually the first organized sports league for blacks in all of North America. Before baseball, basketball, or football.
And it was an innovative league, right?
Yes.
The slap shot may have been invented there.
Yeah.
And also goalies could play in a different way there, and the NHL ended up following. What could goalies do in the Maritime?
Okay, so back then, for a very long time, a lot of the goalies stood up. And if you watch old film, you'll see them standing up. But the Maritimes, they allowed their goaltenders to go and flop on the ice, which is now considered the butterfly style of goaltending.
What everyone does, right? I mean, it's how you play the game.
Now. That's it.
I was blown away when you recounted this history, and you had a historian. I can't remember if it was a white or a black historian, but it doesn't really matter. They said that when they talked to some people about photos from this league, that they were told it was a vaudeville act. Even people who are supposed to know history had forgotten it or were never aware of it.
I think sometimes it's hard because you're going to have to rewrite a little bit of history now. Okay, so all these big hockey historians that have talked about hockey from the beginning of time never included the contributions of black athletes. So now when someone says that, oh, I'm sorry, what about this? They have to kind of deflect that.
Well, it's funny because here in the U.S., I mean, people who know baseball know all about the Negro leagues. You know, as problematic as they were, the separation of black and white, you're aware of it as a seminal part of the game's history. Who was Herb Carnegie?
Oh man, Herb Carnegie was considered one of the best players of his time, never to get the chance to play in the NHL, and some say that was because of racism. Now, Herb Carnegie was a man who actually created the first hockey school in all of North America. You know, Jean Beliveau, who played for the storied Montreal Canadiens. I'm sorry, Boston.
No.
He considered Herb Carnegie his mentor. So this was a man that should have been the first black athlete to play in the NHL, but that went to Willie O'Ree.
There's a really poignant shot in the film where you, and I got to say, you're not in the film. Some documentarians put themselves in the film too much. You're kind of in just the right amount.
Okay, good.
There's a shot where you, I think, have your arm around Herb Carnegie, and he's tearing up. He's crying as he recounts this history, which is really powerful to see. He got 3 offers from the New York Rangers, right, to go play for their minor league team. It was at Connecticut somewhere?
Yes.
Why didn't he take those offers?
Well, you know, that will always be debated. I think, you know, from his point of view, here he is. He was nearing his 30s, so his career would be, you know, ending soon.
He's already famous.
He's already famous. He's already getting paid a lot of money playing in the Quebec League, and so now he felt like they were undermining him and undermining his skill, because he's looking at it like this: I'm just as good as those guys. Why would you want to do this to me? But on the other side, some say it's just like the Jackie Robinson way of
you want them to prove that they can handle the abuse in a minor league. Right? And there was, I can't remember his name, but a black hockey historian who is still palpably frustrated that that Herb Carnegie didn't take these offers.
Yes, Cecil Harris.
I wish he'd done it.
Yes. Well, you know, you never know what the outcome of it would have been.
I would love to talk to you for 30 more minutes. I think we've got about one. You show part of a 1981 CBS feature on a guy named Val James encountering really nasty racism as he plays hockey. Let's take a look at some of that footage.
The chant of spook, spook. Just one epithet from a poisoned garden of racial slurs flung at Val James when he plays hockey in Salem, Virginia.
They actually interviewed people that were actually doing this, and these people were proud of themselves. They have the one guy standing there holding a watermelon, and he's just as proud as Punch.
I couldn't think of anything else he'd more like.
I know.
When you were a young man playing hockey, did you run into anything that nasty?
You know, when I played on the streets with my friends, the one thing that always stood out to me was my favorite player was Guy Lafleur. And, you know, anybody that plays hockey on the streets, you pick the favorite player you are. And I remember this one kid said to me, you can't be Guy Lafleur because Guy Lafleur is white. And that always stuck to me. And it put me in that sense of, well, who can I be? Who is my role models? And it's a shame, but I think the lesson here is you just have to look, and you'll find that role model somewhere.
So my final question for you, do you think that that sort of mindset still applies today, or do you have black kids pretending that they're Sidney Crosby and white kids pretending they're P.K. Subban?
I think we're in a different time. I think we have the advantage where these kids nowadays look at themselves as in a big group, and I think, you know, they'll still have problems. I still have parents telling me that they have situations of their kids getting called the N-word or whatever have you be in the hockey rinks. But for the most part, the NHL and a lot of the minor leagues have cramped down, and they have given this place, this game of hockey, an atmosphere for everybody to make it inclusive.
Kwame Mason, thank you. Can't wait to see the NHL.
All right, enjoy it.
Thank you.